Checking out more views, man. Checking out more views. What's good? What's good? Who's in the chat? Hit the thumbs up as you get in. Also, put in the chat if I'm vertical or horizontal. How you seeing me? Hit a thumbs up as you come into the chat. Let me know if I'm vertical or horizontal when you come into the chat. I just realized something. The screen is mirrored. If I turn my phone to the right or the left, it looks the opposite. I don't know how to change that. But Happy New Year. Sitting there halfway around the world. We're on my side of the world. If you're from North America somewhere right now, it is daytime, right? I just finished watching the sunset. It's New Year, new moves. Let's chat about it. That's why I named that. Got my bag right there for traveling. Got on this side of the world recently. I'll leave it at that. Still got some content for you guys. Got some content from Colombia. Got some from Brazil. But it's a new year. So we're going to be busting new moves, as we say in the Caribbean. I'm sitting there watching Ice Show Speed. Now, I got to say, I'm older cat, so I had no idea who this guy was, man. I literally today had to chat GPT it. I'm like, who the hell is Ice Show Speed? Why is everybody going crazy over this dude? In South Africa, in Cape Town. It's nighttime on the other side of the world. So right now, Ice Show Speed is about an hour behind me. It is nighttime where we are. I don't think he flew over to Joburg yet. I think he's still in Cape Town, but I'm watching a little bit of that. I don't get it, but I'm, younger generation. Everybody seems to know he's a big celebrity. Everybody's showing up. He's signing people clothes. I realized that he got like a $40 million deal some years ago exclusively with, was it Twitch? Put in the comment section. Whoever knows. Want to hit that comment section. Hit the like button as you come in. Show you guys a little bit of the view. See all them skyscrapers over there? I don't know how much you can really see. Let me see something. Yeah, there's one right there. I can't zoom. This is the type of phone I'm using. Got a little B&B right here. One bedroom. Bedroom goes over that direction. Yeah, man. So let's talk about it. New year. We're going to see some changes. Last year, I want to do some changes to the channel. This year, I'm absolutely going to do some changes to the channel. I'm bringing you guys new scenes. Let's put it that way. Ain't gonna be a typical. I might lose some of you. I might add some new people based on that, or I might get rid of the channel. I won't get rid of the channel necessarily, but I'm working on making some changes right now, so you can get a different type of content. Oh, okay. I guess you ain't live no more. I show speed. One thing I will not be doing though is that type of content, right? Like I won't be going live on like Twitch or any of those, man. That's a little too much work. More on live going. A little bit of a delay. Hit the thumbs up as you get in the chat. New year, new side of the world. You can get new content, or should I say different content. I'm gonna go back to how my channel, a little part of it. I'm gonna go back to how my channel used to be. When I first started this channel, it used to be a little bit of a more of a walk and talk. So I'm not gonna be walking and talking. Every once in a while, I'll pop with a few opinions about what's been going on, or any little advice I got for you guys. I'm gonna give you guys also the chance to ask me questions. You could ask questions about anything from my previous travels, also. That's fine. Um, Informational, If you're gonna be going to a country that I have went to, or you just want to know how to move in general, if you want to know like prices and costs of different things, please don't ask like the most basic questions without details, right? So like usually I would get questions like, "Hey man, how much for an apartment over there?" And I'm like, I mean, what should I tell this person? You know what I mean? I mean, what are you looking for? You're looking for a 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom? What's the neighborhood? What's your amenities? Is it a bad neighborhood, regular neighborhood? These are not questions you could just be even in America. Like if you're in Texas, you're gonna pay completely different for a studio than you would pay for a studio in New York City. So that's somebody just like, hey, you're in this country. What's the price of an apartment? They even missing the details. Like, is it a studio that they want? Is it a house that they want? Is it a 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom? Which area are they talking about? And the fact that I'm not even a realtor, not because I go to a country, that means I know the prices necessarily, right? Now, if I was living in a country, even then it depends on the area. You got different types of neighborhoods all around the world. You got good ones, your bad ones, so it can vary. But if you ask in general, like what's the cost of living, like what do I personally spend per month, something like that would be a little bit more reasonable. At least then I could tell you my actual experience. And even then, I'll put in a disclaimer like, but that is based on my lifestyle, right? How me and you eat is not the same. How much you drink, how much you party, how you travel, where you want to go, how much you'll spend is not the same. And it's especially not going to be the same if you're coming on a vacation. Because you're coming on a vacation, you're going to be spending like somebody who's not living in a country. You're going to be entertaining yourself a little bit more. You're going to be going out more. You're going to pay for Airbnb where somebody else might got an actual month-to-month rent that's going to be lower. Because Airbnb, similar to this one, is going to be completely furnished, right? This one is furnished. This one is mine. So you guys might see this every once in a while as long as I'm here. So it'll look the same. When I'm not here, I'll rent it out, right? Already been doing that. So those are little things. Oh, then you guys see that recently Chat GPT a couple of days ago, they're paying for their prompt engineers and their AI workers $500,000 minimum a year. Let's do that again. OpenAI, the owners of ChatGPT, is competing so much with not just the Chinese AI companies, but Google Gemini, which is being overtaken them recently, right? So much so that, man, they've been using Gemini on YouTube to do the analysis for how they're sending people their viewers, right? And it's been just throwing everything off because the AI is the one reading everything and making the decisions. So some channels have grown, some channels used to be all right, can't really get that much views. Nobody really knows how to really tackle it yet because unlike before where they just do a program, right? And the program sits there and then we figure it out. I think the AI is constantly changing and acquiring information from every user across the globe that watches YouTube. That is insane. So the old systems we used to use, you use a tag or use certain title to help push your videos. Sometimes you used to see videos that'll more clickbait you because of that. They put a nice thumbnail, you click on it, you're like, man, this isn't exactly what I think I was getting. Well, now with Gemini, Google's AI, some people who do nothing but YouTube videos about YouTube, how to be successful, these kind of things. And I've noticed it, so they're correct. The AI itself is reading your entire videos. It knows everything in the video, man. Part of that is when they first implemented it, it came back and started flagging a whole bunch of videos I had and other people had, right? A lot of black YouTubers are complaining they're not getting pushed, but I think it's because it's a sub segment of what we usually do on, um, of what we usually do online for quote unquote travel channels. So it's just saying to itself, like, I don't know what this is about, or just doing its thing. Maybe they'll make some changes later on to it, but who knows? Can't bank on that. But yeah, man, it's a new year, new moves. Let's chat about it. Hit the thumbs up as you come in the room. Tell me, what New Year's resolution any of you guys made. What do you want to accomplish this year? Um, typically it's like, well, I'm gonna eat better, I'm gonna work out, I'm going to be in the gym. I came up with a theory years ago that there is no New Year's for me with New Year's resolutions. What I mean by this is, it's not I don't believe in it. I would do a resolution, right? But the plan is not to wait for a new year, not to wait for a particular time. The plan is to be able to bust a move and a change at any point at any time in life, right? And not have to wait, or it have to be any kind of particular occasion or a time in life to make changes. That's been my approach. I got to say these last maybe 2 years or more, and I like the results. I'm just trying to figure out how to 10x that for this year. One of the things I want to triple and quadruple, maybe even 10x is my income this upcoming year. So I'm plotting on it. Got some plans to put into place. Part of that is also less travel, but I've been doing that this past year in a way while trying to set my situation how I need it to be. So that's part of the movements. Hit the thumbs up as you come into the room, man. And I'm free for Q&A, man. Everybody's still off work for the most part. Maybe I'll go back to work on Monday. So, with that said, it's the best time of the year to catch up on these chats. It's morning where you guys are, if not approaching midday. As you can see, it's night where I am. So the sun just went down a couple hours ago. I rang in New Year's earlier than you guys did. When I rang in New Year's, you guys were still like, depending on which, if you're in America, which part of the coast you in. You know, it was like midday, somewhere along there. Yeah, man. Talk to me, peoples. What's been going on with y'all for the new year? What did you do for Christmas? What thoughts do you have on travel and what's going on in the AKA travel community? My site was always like a hybrid, right? Like my channel. So because I was just living in the DR, it was more like opinions, walk and talk while I show you this or that. And then after a while, I hit Colombia, then I hit DR again, then I went to Brazil, then I went, you know what I mean? That kind of thing. Then I went back to DR. I went through Panama. Didn't show y'all Panama. I don't know. Panama got a weird vibe. Yo, if anybody in the chat knows of or have been traveling to Panama, tell me what you think of Panama. I couldn't figure Panama out, man. Some people said depending on where you go in Panama, you got this, you got that. But to me, Panama just seemed a little bit like America when it comes to prices, um, but slow, right? And it just made me think of what I would think if I was living in like Puerto Rico. How is my opinion of Panama? This thing is supposed to be landscape. I'm looking at the TV. I realize it's not. It's more vertical, I guess, or something. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. But yeah, Hit the thumbs up as you come in the room. It's a new year. What new moves you guys want to be making for the new year? Which countries, if any, that you want to go to? For me right now, I don't want to go to any really new countries. Um, but for visa purposes, where I am, I'm going to have to at least jump to two countries. So maybe jump to one, jump back. Maybe while I'm doing that, I might check out a few new ones, but I doubt it. I want to be more settled in my life. Since last year, that was my goal. So now we're in 2026. That goal has been accomplished, right? Um, and now I just got to keep moving that goal forward. I accomplished that goal actually last year, but not until like I want to say towards the end of the year, because I had to do Chile, I had to do South Africa, you know, I did Kenya. I can't say there's any country right now in South America I want to go back to in the future at some point when I get tired of being a little bit more settled. There's still the continent of Oceania, that's Australia, that I want to check out. I'm in no hurry to check out Asia, but that'll be the only other one left. I guess the UK and Europe. So, but that side of the world, I would say those three are kind of left. Up on that list, when it comes to the most important, I would say, when I was younger, I was thinking about doing a biology program just to get into Australia at that time. And I used to be fascinated with um, Queensland, Australia, which is like the more warm region with oceans and where they also say it's the most dangerous animals in the world. I didn't care. I used to be fascinated with Queensland, Australia. I tried to figure out how to get a visa to go over there, all kind of stuff. How was I gonna live in Australia? Funny how life worked. Because at that time too, I started talking to this one girl, and she was gonna be living in Australia, but she was a nurse. So at that time, Australia was just giving up, not giving up, but it was easier for nurses to get in there because it was a needed profession. Now we talking about over like 20 years ago, so it was a while. Doubt if things are the same now, but and then I learned a little bit more about the world now than I did then. So expenses and all these kind of things, currency conversions. I didn't know a lot about Australia to that extent. Well, I didn't know a lot about living in other places to that extent. You know what I mean? Hit the like when you come in the room. Um, for these lives, by the way, it doesn't support as well as videos. You guys probably already know that. So don't do Cash App, please. Uh, if you guys want to buy me a coffee, buymeacoffee.com/Rich's Method. And then I got Zelle. If you're a U.S. citizen, you already know what Zelle is. All the banks use that. And you just send it to my email, richardsmethod@gmail.com. It doesn't show your private information or anything like that. So you're good. It's kind of like Cash App, but for the banks. Or take even less information about yourself. You could just do a buy me a coffee, which is like Cash App or PayPal. PayPal, I realized the code that PayPal had all this while, if somebody click on it, it said it couldn't find my profile. I'm like, I don't trust that. They made some change in the link. I found out the right link eventually, but I was like, it's too complicated. Then they made this thing where you could do like a tip QR code. So I did that. But for QR code, you got to be able to scan the QR code. I don't think Americans is used to that as everybody else in the world. You know what I mean? Well, yeah, man. I ain't got nothing really controversial to talk about. My last two lives I hit up all that crazy crash out content stuff, as well as the the pedo stuff that was going on. Some people are aware of that. Some people wanted people to talk about that. I didn't know dude personally, so I just give him a general opinion and tell you guys what I've seen while traveling. Today is more like, all right, we're in the new year, 2nd of January. I was gonna do a live yesterday, but I decided not to, right? You guys are gonna be busy anyway. Who ain't partying, who ain't celebrating New Year's for the most part, who ain't traveling. Today I think was a better day. People still off work. Maybe they had yesterday off work, but it's still off today because we're approaching the weekend. Obviously, when I used to work a regular job, one of the things I would do too, if a holiday is coming in, close to the weekend, you try to get the weekend and the holiday. So you could just get the whole, like from, Wednesday all the way to next Monday off, right? Can't show you guys much outside, man. It's night. It's night where I am. I'm halfway around the world if you're in North America. So where I originally planned to be years ago when I started my journey and I left the United States of America. I took a detour of about 5, 6 years. Let's put it that way. Actually, no, I came to Africa 2 years ago, but um, now we're gonna implement the changes more, make it more permanent. So when I came first time to halfway around the world to see if I could live there, if I would like it. Which brings up a good point. All you guys watching social media, all you guys watching us YouTubers or in general travel YouTubers or anybody else, you see have made a move or maybe you just want to go vacation there and you think you're going to have the best time there, I would say make sure you first go to a place and check it out, right? And keep your expectations open. Not because you see certain people go to certain places, love it, seem to be having the best time of their life. That means it's going to be the same for you. And what I mean by that is that you're going to necessarily love that place, right? Remember, you're just taking a journey, you're exploring, and you're just trying to have a good time. Don't look at somebody's video and figure that's exactly how it'll be for you. It's not the reality of how life works. You're all going to have different experiences. You all got different access to different places, different budgets, different feelings about different things in life. You all enjoy and not enjoy different things. So keep that in mind. Then if you can, you must move. Some people, depending on where you're watching from, you'll be able to go into certain countries. Other people, you won't have access to certain countries, right? If you're American, Canadian, European of some type, all right, your passport carries you a little bit more. But then you still got your job, responsibilities, um, budget, and these things will change, you know, how you will view a place when you go to visit. So, if you go into a country, you stay in a resort, you're going to spend a lot of money, but you can get the resort experience. You're not going to get the country experience, right? It makes a difference. If you're going to Bahamas for 2 days on a cruise, it's going to be completely different than if you go stay at Airbnb and had 2 days to explore and you got a driver and you got a tour guide, right? If you're a person who goes to museums and you go to see the monuments, learn the history, see the sights, it's going to be completely different than a person who goes in, they just want to drink, party, have a good time, hit the clubs, hit the hot night spots. Their experience in that island is going to be completely different than yours, right? And then which side of the island did they go to? When I went to Jamaica, I did Montego Bay once, actually a couple of times, but I stayed in Montego Bay. Then I also went in Ocho Rios, or they call it Ochi. Completely different vibe than Mo Bay, Montego Bay. And then if you go all the way to the western side of Jamaica, long before Jamaica, no, but by the way, bless up to all them Jamaicans because Jamaica's still recovering from that crazy hurricane, man. But if you let's say you go to Portland. I also did Kingston. I also did parts of Jamaica that people don't usually go. Every time I go a place, I usually go places that people don't usually go. So like there's an area in Jamaica called Boston's. Jamaica got two type of jerk chicken. The regular jerk chicken that you see all around the world, and then there's a dry rub version called Boston jerk chicken. Most Jamaicans know about that, but it was invented in that part of Jamaica, an area called Boston's. A lot more country area, quieter. Matter of fact, people like Oprah, Shaggy, a couple of big names. They all got big homes in the hills over that side overlooking the ocean in that area, which is a lot more quiet and you don't see as much tourism, believe it or not. However, the real rich Jamaicans who need like a vacation home and they just want to disappear when they want to disappear, some of them used to have homes on that side of the island, right? And it's like really, really poor. But then if you know or you end up in certain areas, you then realize it's these massive mansions, right? So that was interesting to see. So little things like that, man. If you guys got questions about those kind of things, how the vibes can change, how you could like really have a good time when you go into a place for a shorter period of time, maybe 4 or 5 days. Make sure to drop your questions in this Q&A chat because it's a new year. I'm sure you guys got some new plans, whether that's even not to do anything and just buckle down and maybe make some money, or Americans especially get rid of debt, right? Maybe some of you want to change your jobs. Maybe some of you want to get in better shape. Maybe some of you want to eat better. I'll give you a little trick I learned about like 7 years ago, guys, especially for the fellas. You actually don't have to hit the gym as much, right? If you change completely the way that you eat. Now, this is going to be harder if you're in America because there's so many different hormones and chemicals and crap in the food, man. But I would say cut out milk. This is something that nobody don't really talk about. Cut out milk of all kind and stop trying to eat as many things with dairy. Like, okay, you cut out cheese, cut out cereal. No cereal in the morning. America really advertised that. Processed meats. What I mean is that like sausage is processed meat. You could just Google what is processed meats, and that's the easiest way to change your life. Eat less meat, man. I would say eat more chicken. America's kind of hard with this, but fish, because then the fish is like it's not natural. It's all grown on the farm. They feed it so many antibiotics. Then you got different impurities in the fish. Let's talk about New Year's stuff, which is usually health, wealth, working out, eating right, being in shape. New goals we usually have: more money, less debt. Not less money, less debt. Um, that would be some of the tips I would give when it comes to eating. Walk a lot more, drink water. Yeah, I'm not sure you heard the water thing, but you don't necessarily got to be up in the gym all the time lifting weights. This is why so many people struggle, right? The new year comes, they feel they got to change their life. They jump in the gym, they're pumping weights, bam, bam, bam. They're doing everything. Put you a bunch of pain. Your body ain't used to that. You got to do gradual changes. So by 3 months in, March, everybody fall off. The gyms know this, so they're gonna run promotions all the way from like November all the way through, because they know you guys gonna be packing the gyms come this time of the year. Right now it's the second. If you already start, I'm sure you're like, yeah, it's gonna be tomorrow or it's gonna be next week, because that's usual the high time everybody's in there. It's also the worst time to start the gym because everybody's in there. So if you're a person who never used to go to the gym, or you're a little bit intimidated by the fact that you didn't know all the equipment in there, or you didn't work out as much, imagine hitting the time when everybody else is in it. Some people look like they've been in the gyms forever. It could be intimidating. Me personally, I always used to like working out in nature, right? It used to be easier when I was in the military, but um, because take you outside and run you 7 miles. So if you have to necessarily go in the gym, um, you will definitely get exercise every morning, 4:30. It'll wake your ass up, take you to the yard. And, it's like everybody in the formation. Some days you want to run, other days, all right. There's everything else, right? So PT all day long. But yeah, gyms for me, when I came out of the military, what I would do, I would keep my workout bench at a bench press in the living room for years, right? So like at one point when I got my first place, I didn't have any furniture. All I had in there was a TV, my bed, and in the living room, my bench press. So the motivation at the time was not to really furnish it fast, because then I didn't have a chair, I didn't have a couch. So it was like every time I had to watch a TV, I had to be right there, you know. So I'm like, all right, good. Watching TV and bench pressing, right? And it was versatile. So I had my dumbbells and my barbell. And I would do my push-ups, my sit-ups. You do everything from that workout bench. But that was in my 20s when I used to live. At one point, I started taking creatine. Started to have some reaction to creatine. You couldn't do really good gains with creatine, but that chemical, man. And I started to grow like a little bump on my head, and I thought it was because of that. I did go to a dermatologist. It was like, oh, black people usually get this growth. It's a fatty tissue. Sometimes people get it on their arm. You just happen to get it on your head, and they just did a little injection in it. Dude took a scalpel, cut it out, sent it to get tested. which was the longest 3 days of my life. I'm like, yo, why this dude didn't call me back? Let me know if this thing is cancerous. Call the guy up like on the fourth day. He's like, oh, I'm sorry. No, everything was good. That's why you didn't call you. You misunderstood. If something was wrong, then we were going to call you. I was like, what the? But I thought it was from the creatine. So then I started going natural, right? I cut out all the wheat protein formula and all that stuff. And then you guys work out, man. I'm sure you guys know some information about this. Drop it in the chat. Um, I'll read your comment out. But same with any questions. Yeah, but there's those little things, right? Being able to cut that out, that made me start to read about healthier ways to work out. I never tried any kind of growth hormones and all that kind of nonsense, right? Because I already knew the dangers of that. So that wasn't really a thing. But a lot of these things that we're buying from like GNC, I remember I would go to GNC and drop like a lot of dollars on that. Because those things at that time were like $40, $50 for a jar of wheat protein and all that, right? And you start reading them bodybuilding workout magazines and articles at that time, and you're trying this, you're trying that, you're trying this way of working out. What I found eventually, there was a program called P90X, and they talked about muscle confusion. To this day, I still believe in that, right? Where let's say if you're working out 6 days a week, trust me, I ain't in a position to be doing that stuff no more. I used to at one point, actually 7, but I was in my late 20s, early 30s. But I didn't realize later on it made more sense for me to just drop weight, eat right? And then when I went to the Caribbean, it was even easier for me to drop weight and not be as bulky and muscly. But I had stopped doing as much muscle mass even before that because it takes more oxygen for that, right? You need more oxygen, you need more nutrition, your body burn differently, and then you don't have as much cardio the more muscle you have. It's very hard to have a balance. So when I look at life in general, it makes sense that to have more cardio and less muscle is actually healthier. And when you do have muscle, it's not about the muscle mass, it's about the muscle tension and strength, right? So I started just being fit enough where you can go through a whole day, do this and this. You don't really gotta look muscled up. You just gotta look toned enough, healthy enough, you know, and you can do what most people can't do, even people who got a lot of muscle. Unless you're like a football player, it don't really make sense to have a lot of muscle mass, or if you're a wrestler or something, or if you're just naturally a heavyweight, right? Because you're carrying a lot more weight on you, which as you get older, you're looking at your back, you're having back problems, you're having diabetes, you're having knee problems, foot problems, right? Anytime you see that's happening, most likely it's a combination of diabetes or just diabetes. I ain't a doctor, don't sue me. Disclaimer. Yeah, but a combination of those things. I did study microbiology though. So I did pre-med, but I didn't go to med school. Yeah, man, but just these little things, right? Um, I would say that's a little tip for the new year for you guys who only want to focus in on your health. Don't focus as much on the muscle. That'll come anyway if you do a little bit. Do a little bit of regular weights. That does help you. But focus on what you're eating mostly, not a diet. A diet really just means what you're eating, right? So as long as you just make it a lifestyle of cutting out BS, you're going to see results. You're going to see quick results when it comes to your diet. If you're looking for the quick results, do both. Get in the gym, do a lot of cardio, and make sure you eat a certain way, right? But then lifestyle wise, once you balance it out, once maybe you fall back to 3 days, you're living a regular life again. What most people do is they just go back to both bad things. They go back to eating bad and not going in the gym. But then if you're not continuing with the gym all crazy, where you change your eating lifestyle, and in general you're doing things you didn't used to do. Park in the back of the parking lot, walk to the building. This is what I used to do. Instead of taking the elevator, some of the times I used to take the stairs. But if you're looking for like I'm going to start this right now, do it a couple of months. No, this is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like the slow changes, right? Or the drastic changes that you're going to continue to do the rest of your life. I've just spent the last 8 years doing everything I'm telling you now. By the time I hit Brazil, it got to the point, long before Brazil, no more weights. I haven't done weights in like, I think I want to start by doing some weights though, but if I get settled into a place, like the place I'm in right now got a gym. I had it since last year. I have not used that gym, which is a shame. The gym is actually on my rooftop, right? They don't have a pool in this one, but I haven't used the gym. Maybe I start doing some tension, or I would do basically body weights, right? Like free calisthenics, use your own body strength. So push ups, pull ups, dips on the chairs, these kind of things, which I started doing on a program called P90X, P as in Paul 90X. And at that time, it was popular. You paid a lot of money for it. Now you can go on YouTube and find it for free. Along with that program, it was like Kempo X, which was like kickboxing. You also had yoga. Yo, as a man, I didn't know till 10 years ago. The yoga is like a real exercise, bro. And this is before all the football players and athletes started to realize that yoga it wasn't just a sport for women, right? And then they started doing it. But I think that program helped make it popular. I remember the time my fiance, she'd be able to just knock out these damn yoga poses. By the time I tried, I'm like, what the? I ain't got that much flexibility at the time. I'm falling over. I'm sweating. My hand is shaking to keep the pose. And when she first started, she wasn't as great at it either, but her body adapted to it quicker. So that is true. Most females would adapt to that yoga stuff unless they're really out of shape really easily. But a couple of them poses, man, like it really takes strength to hold those different poses because it's like some Indian old style that you're using your own body. So if you guys are into like anime and kung fu and all these things, you might have known like the Indians used to use what was it called? Like how they do that little yoga pose with their legs and all that. But I think the Indian people first started that as their martial arts, right? Or as part of their fitness regime. That thing is hard, yo, hard as hell. So that was one of the days. And one of the days in that program, you do yoga. Then you do like Kempo X. Then you do stretches. Then you do push-ups, pull-ups. You do upper body, lower body. And it was supposed to be 7 days. So when I first started that, I did a regime for like a month, 7 days. I got ripped as hell, but I wasn't eating the right things and I wasn't taking the right vitamins. So then, like the second month, I just always felt tired, depleted. That made me go and I watched a documentary. It's called what was it like Fat Something Something and Sick. You can still find it free these days online. But it was like an Australian dude who started juicing, which just basically mean he had like the bullet or a machine, or he would walk around and only do fresh juices. Well, he started where he was like cleaning his system out, right? And then he was starting over from scratch just to lose weight, to get rid of his ailments, these kind of things. I didn't have to do it like that, but I started doing the juicing that he was doing, which was like kale. At that time, I was in America, so it was like apples, kale, cucumbers, that's everything. And instead of doing a harsh meal, I would drink that juice. But it would have the opposite effect, man. I used to be up 3:30 in the morning after working the whole day, and I'm just doing push-ups. Like I'm not tired. I'm doing push-ups, pull-ups. I'm working out 3 in the morning just to try to go to sleep. And then I would get up 6:30 and go to work for 7:30, 8 o'clock. I was like, what the this thing works, right? But by that time I had cleaned out my system already. And that kale especially is a superfood. So if you grind up that kale, you drink that kale juice, you do beets, the red thing, beet juice, orange juice to give it flavor and all that. And you naturally juice and you drink that thing, the first 2 weeks you feel kind of lazy. By the third week, you notice you got way too much energy. And fellas, let me tell you something. For the bet, yo, any girl you mess with during that time, she gonna be in trouble, right? That thing used to like have me, and I mean like energetic. There was some days I didn't even. That's some days, but like I remember like maybe a night would pass, I didn't even sleep, but the next day I didn't feel tired. Go work a second day, and then the next night I'm up till midnight, 1 o'clock, and then I might fall asleep. And it was all natural. We just talking about buying vegetables, right, and just juicing it, and just light meals. The thing about that though, that was very expensive. In the United States of America, to get those natural, good vegetables, that's gonna be the problem, right? Because the cheap stuff that's not good for you, when you're trying to be healthy, man, it's a problem in the US. So thinking about that part, that's gonna be a negative, right? I would say focus on kale, celery, beets. What else did I used to use at that time? Get a couple of oranges and apples. That'll be healthier for you. At that time, I used to do eggs. I really don't eat that much eggs, and get rid of the typical U.S. breakfast. No cereals, no milk in the morning. Bread. I stopped doing alcohol in my house years ago. Seldom will you find alcohol in my house, right? That way, when I come home or have a hard day, I don't just feel like grab a bottle and drink a beer or do alcohol, right? Make certain the things that are not as good for you inaccessible. Don't keep it in your house. Like right now, this little mini fridge I got right here, along with the microwave. Microwave is sitting on top of it. And this side of where you got a lot of mini fridges, right? That fridge is empty right now, literally. I went out today and buy some stuff to cook with, right? You see that red bag? And there's a reason for that. One, also, it's an Airbnb spot. So if somebody book it, I ain't block out the dates. I got to be ready to bust a move to have it available. When maybe one of you guys come to this side of the world one day, or if you hit me up personally and you're like in Kenya, you're in Nairobi, you let me know. I'm gonna try to see what I could do in South Africa. I already went there. I scoped it out, but South Africa laws are different. Yeah, I ain't supposed to be working in none of these countries, but South Africa especially is very hard to get like residency or citizenship there. And if you try to apply, you got to be living in your country first. It's like if I wanted to do that, I got to go back in the U.S., go to the embassy in the U.S., apply to South Africa, all these crazy things, man. So, but South Africa, I think, had possibilities for Airbnb also. You guys who think about maybe doing real estate or doing real estate in another country, South Africa might be an option. Just know that with their laws also, you gotta leave and go back. But and you will have to file taxes still in the U.S. But they got more development, so it's like a lot more buildings, these kind of things. But you'd also have to find, if you're not buying, you got to find somebody who's willing to rent, right, to a foreigner. That might be a little more difficult. That was one of the issues too with Brazil. I got a Brazilian version of the tax ID, right? It's called a CPF. Easy to get. Actually, within 3, 4 days, you could get it online. I know there's some programs or some guys who telling you got to pay. You don't. And if you search YouTube properly, or you ask me, um, I'll tell you the whole process how to get a CPF online. It is in Portuguese when you're doing it online, but there's a way to change it over to English. There's other things to do to get it. And at the time, I was talking to this Brazilian girl, and she just knew a little bit about it. She didn't really know the whole process, but a couple of things she told me helped me along the way, right? So I had actually got my CPF in Brazil, which is like their tax ID we got to use for banks. You got to use it if you go to rent a place, basically every goddamn thing. So if you're staying in Brazil for a longer period of time and you don't have a CPF, man, even to get a SIM card for your phone. The first time I went into Brazil, there was a guy near the beach at one of the stations, and he had these cards and he trying to sign everybody up. This is his job, right? And I think it was like Ipanema stop or something like that, or Copacabana stop. So I go up to him. I'm like, hey, I've been here like a week. What does it take to have a SIM card? Luckily, he spoke just a little bit of English, but I was speaking a little bit of Spanish, and he spoke some Spanish. And he's like, well, do you have a CPF? I'm like, what's that? I didn't even really know what it was. And then he's like, explain it to me. And I was like, no, I ain't got one. He's like, well, normally you can't get one, but I know to sign you up. So he basically did. He had some girl's ID. You could tell he was from the hood. He's one of the favelas. Some girl, he got the girl's ID, whether his girlfriend, his family member, whoever. And basically, in the day system for the company he's working for, he put in the girl's information, right? And he gives me the phone, but he was asking me how long am I going to be in Brazil. So at that time, I think I told him like a couple weeks or a month. He's like, well, yeah, you're going to be fine. You know what I mean? And I realized later on why he was doing that, because he's signing a lot of people up with her number that are foreigners. Well, he figured the good news is in a couple of weeks or whatever, when they're gone, that number will go inactive for that SIM card. So it won't really matter. It ain't gonna look like the girl got 50 different phone numbers out there in her name, right? And I'm sure he probably charged me just a little bit more or whatever for the SIM to give me some data. I didn't really understand how the data work, how to reload it. You give me a basic information, which I really didn't understand either, because it was such a different system. But I moved on. I ended up going all the way to Salvador Bahia and all kind of stuff with that same SIM card. I think to this day I still got that SIM card, right? But these are the little things that you got to know. Now, I got a CPF now, so everywhere I go in Brazil, I could sign up for different things, right? But it's also when you go for a job in Brazil, how they tax Brazilians. Brazilians get taxed at the end of the year or twice a year, like every 6 months, on whatever they make. And the taxes are taken out of the money in their bank, typically. Now, obviously, if you're living in a favela, and fellas, this is a way to know if your Brazilian girlfriend living a regular life in the system or not. If she don't get taxed that way, if she ain't got a bank account and all that, she probably ain't working a normal job, right? She had to below the poverty line, at the poverty line, or she living in the favelas. Maybe she doing side jobs. She already got a legit straight up job, right? Because the banks work along with the government and the companies to do taxes in Brazil. So it works. So different places around the world does have different systems. And you see, little information like this, man, is information that is like important, you know, but not necessarily needed for everybody, but still helps you to know, right? Also helps you to navigate. In every country you go to, there's always these little things and systems are different. And you might think, well, why would I need it necessarily? Well, that example I just gave. If you were talking to some girl in Brazil, that might be important to you for you to know so you understand what's going on with her, right? Um, or if you're planning one day to retire there, right? So if you're gonna go to Rio or something like that, it ain't gonna matter Rio, Sao Paulo, any other quieter part of Brazil. These things are important when you're going for any health care in Brazil, which is free, even if you're a foreigner. You're gonna need a CPF to fill out most forms. They're gonna just ask for it. Like they don't even know that you won't have one. They really don't care, but they're gonna ask you for your CPF number because they got to put it into their systems, or they're gonna try to sign you up. Like, okay, I came to get my yellow fever shot to travel, and I had only had a yellow fever shot when I was younger in the Caribbean. It's something that you only get once in your life. Now, most Americans don't never really get a yellow fever. So if they go into a country that does yellow fever, they got to go and they got to get it from their doctor. In America, it's like $250. In Brazil, it's free, right? In my country, it was free. They used to come to the schools when I was born in South America. My country is right next to Brazil's on top of it. And they used to give us all these different vaccines as a kid. If you want to identify a person from another country or the Caribbean, look at their arm. They all gonna have like a little area that had a bunch of little vaccines when they were younger. There's another way I could tell Americans and non-Americans, right? If I look at their arm, usually their left arm, I think it was. Let me look at mine. Trying to remember. No, yeah, left arm. You'll see a bunch of like area depending on the person's skin. We could tell when they were younger they had vaccines, right? I don't know which arm it is on mine, but I know for that yellow fever shot they gave me in my left arm. But I was able to go get a yellow fever shot just a few days because you had to wait a couple of days for travel in Brazil, right? And this was over about a year ago, right? Um, and then within the travel time, it was just before I needed to travel. And then I was able to travel. Either 5 days or 3 days, something like that, for it to take effect. And to this day, I still got that record. It's an international yellow fever vaccine. So instead of carrying a yellow card, I just got to print out the document, which I could print out many times. It has my information on it. It has three different languages: French, English, actually four, because it got Portuguese, French, English, Spanish, and English, the major languages, right? So no matter where I go in the world, they would see I have it. And then there's a little QR code. This is where Brazil is really advanced. It's a dichotomy in Brazil. It's got a little QR code that any company, any country can scan, or anybody could scan on their phone to validate if it's a real, actual, um, like the injection was actually done and it's real. It'll even have like a batch where they could trace back to the exact batch for the yellow fever shot that you had to prove it's legit under the international system that no yellow fever shots are registered. Like, yep, this person had it. It's legit. It came from X, Y, Z. Why? If you go to some African countries and some countries around the world, somebody need a yellow fever shot. Somebody on the side will sell them off the books. And real, they're just selling them a yellow fever card. They never had a shot. Can't trace back to nothing. It's not really legit. So later on, they came up with an international registry. And I went to an actual clinic in Brazil, free. I'm not even Brazilian. Same thing. If you're traveling in Brazil and something should happen to you, you get sick, they got public healthcare system similar to how Europe, England, these places, the ones that they complain about, but it's free. I will say when I went there, it didn't even take long. I was only like 5 people in there. A lot of people were there for different reasons, right? And I had to go to like near the El Centro area in Rio, which is not that nice looking, but it was the business section. So it wasn't like real, crazy looking. It wasn't like Lapa. It was like below Lapa. So it was a busy business day. You go into the building, you realize it's a medical center. They ask you which one you're there for. You sit down. There was a guy there that spoke English. The guy even tried, crazy enough, the guy tried to sell me a CPF. And I was there to get my CPF for free. But be careful of that. When you're a foreigner, they'll even try to sell you a CPF. They're like, oh, I got a guy who could do it for you. And they'll try to hit you up for like 50 to 100 US dollars for something that's free. If I didn't already know I could get my CPF free, I might have fell for that. I didn't have one at the moment, but the guy kept telling me, man, the thing about that is you could actually go get those medical things done too without the CPF at the moment. But if you're waiting for a result, like I had to wait for that form to print out, right? And they made sure that the amount of days lapse first before they'll actually give you the document. In between that time, I was able to apply for the CPF. The other thing you could have done, you could have used somebody else's CPF. So, like if you got a girl over there or your new girl you were cool with, you could use hers. So there was a girl I was talking to. I didn't want to ask her directly, so I just kind of felt her out, see what she would say, because I knew there was a couple guys in Brazil that got caught up in situations like that where they were using some girl's CPF, but they got to be careful what they're doing and vice versa, because for that girl, if this guy he's a foreigner, he's going out there, he's getting this, he's getting that, he's buying different things, he's getting internet. Brazil is tracking all these things, and that could actually affect the girl finances. So there's a guy in Salvador that tried to start a YouTube channel, still got it, but he's not really well known, nothing like that. It wasn't Vibing with Fred. There's a guy out there I watched named Vibing with Fred. It wasn't him. Some other weird guy that moved there. And I started watching his channel because I realized he was just on BS and something's a little wrong with him. But the way he would talk about Brazilian women was kind of crazy, while saying he loved them and he's there for that. And he's definitely a passport, bro. But he was trying to do like dating content. I know it wasn't the guy that got arrested for the pedophilia thing the other day. It wasn't him. But yeah, this guy, he ended up doing a live and he was complaining that the girl who he was using her CPF started to ask him questions and complain about something. And I realized he didn't understand why the girl was asking him those questions, right? And he didn't really know on the back end for her why what he was doing, she was concerned about it. So you don't really want to be over there using somebody's CPF. And maybe a girl from like the favelas, she ain't really got nothing going on. She ain't really got no credit system in Brazil. She ain't really got the regular typical job. So she ain't gonna really care as much, right? But a middle class girl or a girl that actually in their system got a job, living in an okay neighborhood, family members out there, this kind of thing, they're gonna care. They might also know the importance and just don't want to be like, oh, I got one, you need a CPF, yeah, use mine. They're not going to do that. So this girl, she was legit, and she out there regular and everything. So I just kind of bring it up just to see what she was going to say, if she was going to like offer hers. Instead, she just kind of offer information. So I was like, all right, that's cool. And the information she offered really helped me out, right? So I was appreciative of that. And I was able to get my CPF real quick, along with the information she gave me. I realized that I could just go online, find out how to get it done, do the whole process myself. Yeah, and I was able to get mine. And then I was able to do other things. If I should ever one day go back to Brazil, I'm not in Brazil right now. I know that I could go in there again and I could function regular, right? Like I could go into Brazil and get a SIM card soon as I touch down. I could get their version of what we used to call Metro cards to be able to move around on their trains, right? Which I still have one in my wallet right now. Um, but everything it takes for the most part over there, except for maybe I guess a legit bank account and credit. At least I have that basic CPF to start out. And I think a bank account in Brazil is even harder now. And now the other thing, for you guys who want to go into Brazil, you got to do a background check. I think they had got strict on the visa and then they reduced it again. But yeah, the visa system, first they wanted you to show your income and all that. I heard they might have got rid of that recently or a couple months ago or whatever. So for you guys who are worried about that part, you don't got to worry about that anymore. But you do have to apply in advance and all that, right? As an American. So actually, some countries now it's easier to go into Brazil, and it's harder for Americans specifically to go into Brazil because of Trump and everything. So, and it used to be that way like 20 years ago in Brazil, 15 years ago also. You just couldn't just get up and go into Brazil. So that's not new. Colombia. Well, have I heard about Colombia for you guys who might want to travel in the upcoming year? I don't know if this is true, but people are saying Colombia requires a FBI background check. I think that is BS. There's a guy who got a channel, DC Born Rob, and he keeps saying that because he's in partnership with some company that he knows in Brazil that will run a FBI check. But I think what they're talking about specifically is if you want residency. As you know, Colombia does like some of you guys might not know, Colombia does like a 2 year residency, right? Where you just show your income is above like, let's say 750, 800 US dollars a month. And you send in proof of that online, send in your passport, proof of that online. You pay like, I don't know how much it was, like $100, let's say. And within like a week, you'd get a 2 year residency if it's approved that fast and you ain't got no background issues in Brazil. I mean Colombia. But what I think they did was they added that you now need because Americans been going in doing shart, not just Americans, but other foreigners, right? For years. They're trying to get a little more strict, and I think now you need a background check with an FBI background check. But you could go get your own. Like if you're in the States and you wanted to do something like that, or if you don't want to go to a company, you just Google online which American company does that kind of background check. You could get it officially sent directly to their government. And it's a similar process, and you probably don't got to pay no in between man fee. You know what I mean? So just some extra information for you guys. Yeah, this is what I'm saying, man. I got a lot of these kind of information. For you guys who get older, maybe you want to retire, or maybe you're a digital nomad. That would be an easy income for you to most likely, show online if you wanted to live in Colombia. Obviously, Colombia's been having problems, but I could tell you, I did Cali, Colombia. When I was in Medellin, I did not do parqueaderas and all these areas. I didn't go to any of the tourist areas to stay, right? I went there once or twice, I think, maybe twice to do 2 videos for you guys, and that was it. So you could actually be outside of those areas, making a little less money, where your money stretch further, get you a nice little apartment in an all right middle class part of Medellin. You ain't got to be paying American type crazy prices, dealing with Colombians who don't like foreigners because they're running up the price, or they got attitude when you're in the tourist section because white guys have been going there doing crazy crap for years. A lot of guys now got bad videos of Colombia saying why they shouldn't start a business there, or the business shut down, or why they're no longer going to live there, and the situation they have with different girls. That kind of happens in every single country, right? I could tell you bad stories about why I want to live in DR. I could tell you bad stories of why I want to live in Colombia, but I didn't stay in Colombia long enough to even get that bad taste. And the other thing I didn't do is I avoided most of the problems the guys eventually face in DR because I didn't used to live in the tourist areas or frequent the tourist areas that much. And I made sure that I didn't go out there trying to talk to the girls who would be in the tourist areas or live in the tourist areas or go working in the tourist areas, right? Hell, I still had problems with a woman out there that I was seeing for a while, and I met her in the normal area. So it wasn't that kind of problem, but hey, values and all the different things not aligned. Thinking, well, the person come from a certain culture or a certain family, they should be thinking a certain way, but they're not. Or they have to deal with because they got their own issues from growing up and these different things. But they won't admit it. They could never say they're wrong. You know, all these different things that sometimes just come with people or come with culture or they come with both. Let me close this door to my patio, man. Yeah, fellas. So yeah, man, these things is life, you feel me? So life goes. What other country, man? Chile. I would say if you go to Chile, have a girlfriend. You'll be mighty lonely. That's more of a kind of quiet society. If you're going to relax, you're going to retire. I know some guys out there got videos talking about how you could party. Every place got a club or club area or whatever. But in general, if you go there, you don't speak Spanish. And even if you do speak Spanish, it's gonna take you a while to like assimilate into the culture in Chile, right? Because they're a little bit more quiet, it's a little bit more modern than you might think. Unless you go to, the bad areas. They don't really have a drinking culture similar to, let's say, Brazil and the Dominican Republic. That was one of the things that shocked me when I got there, especially going from Brazil. I got there and I'm like, yo, where's the little bar areas and the places that sell drinks? And you would even ask people, and they'd be like, I don't know, right? So whereas Brazil got a drinking culture, they also got a culture where a lot of people just work out all the time and all that. But you can find anything to drink at any time, and at every little spot that got food, you could get a beer, you could get liquor. Brazil is like that, DR is like that. But then you get to Chile, and it's like if that place is a restaurant, it's a restaurant. And as you walking around, you're not seeing any little like sports bar and these kind of things, man. You gotta go like to a club. Even when you walk into like a grocery store, like some grocery stores in the country, you go to a section, they'll have liquor, the liquor section. I don't drink that much, and I wasn't looking to drink a lot when I was in Chile because I went over to and from Brazil and went back to Brazil, so it wasn't like when you were in Brazil, you could drink so much, man, that you like, yo, I'm gonna spend a month not drinking. So I was out in Chile, like, okay, I don't need to drink. But after a while, I noticed, like, yo, where do people drink here? They don't go to a club. When you go to a club, you go into a club like nighttime or whatever. So um, some of you might have noticed if you came into the live, hit the thumbs up as you come in. That just now my place was dark. Yeah, I'm not in North America. I'm not in the Caribbean. I'm not in South America, right? So it's night where I am. It's day where you are. Matter of fact, if you're on the East Coast, it's only 12 noon over there. But where I am, it's dark already. New year, new moves. That's why the title is that. Panama. Panama got US prices, use US dollars. Seems slow, seemed like a small island. Panama to me when I went through there reminded me of DR. And because I had come from DR, I wasn't feeling it. Same Spanish, ladies look the same. I don't try for ladies, I don't give a shit. And when I do travel, if I'm going to be in a place, I want to know that I'll get along with the ladies there and the type of ladies that I like. Panama got that US vibe, so I would visit there, me personally, but I wouldn't live there. Um, couldn't really get the vibe that told me Caribbean island either, which was weird. I've been to Jamaica, I've been to Trinidad and Tobago. Even those countries got a Caribbean vibe. Panama, way too Americanized in a way. And this is why I've never been to Puerto Rico, but I could imagine it feels the same. Plus, growing up in New York, you knew a lot of Dominicans and Puerto Ricans anyway. You're around them. Hell, when I was in military training, I literally had one battle buddy from DR. At that time, I didn't know none but DR. And I had one from Puerto Rico. Of course, if you guys know anything about Puerto Ricans and Dominicans, they don't necessarily get along because Dominicans think Puerto Ricans think they're better, and Puerto Ricans think Dominicans are too ghetto and ain't got no class. Funny enough, we all end up being good friends, including the Puerto Rican guy and the Dominican guy. But me and Dominican dude was cooler. I just didn't really know a lot about Dominican Republic at that time. I was all right with a Puerto Rican guy, right? But me and the Dominican dude ended up being more friends. Um, and they teamed us up together as battle buddies. So if you guys know anything about the military, once they said this is your battle buddy, y'all better be getting along because you be spending a lot of time together. Everything you do, you gotta do together. That's part of military training, right? Everywhere you freaking go when you're deployed somewhere or if you're in the field, even if you're gonna go take a damn dump in the bushes, your battle buddy gotta follow along, and then you go a little deeper and he got a guard, right? That's how it works. That's why they call a battle buddy, two-man team, right? At minimum. So yeah, that was a hard experience too. But I have been in Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic. Obviously, you guys, if you know my channel and you just happen to come in here, you already know I know a lot about DR. Hit the thumbs up as you come in. All right, so now I've covered Brazil for you guys. I've covered Chile a little bit, Panama a little bit, a lot about Brazil. Somebody put in the chat what other country you want me to cover. I don't think you guys would normally go to like Jamaica or go to, you know, Trinidad and Tobago, but I could tell you a little bit about both. I did Port of Spain, which is the capital of Trinidad and Tobago. There's a lot of violence in Trinidad, but you could go there without being like in a problem, especially as a foreigner. And now you're living there. You do go to Tobago, which is a tourist island. There's a main flight on a smaller plane from usually leaving twice a day, early in the morning, from Trinidad going into Tobago. And then I think like 1 o'clock. They might have changed that, but just know there's usually like two flights a day. If you're on the main island, then you fly into the more tourist island with all the blue water and all that. Trinidad don't really got blue water. It's because they used to have natural gas, so that's where they make their money from. It's one country, two different islands, Trinidad and Tobago. That's why it's named that way. Tobago is a small island. Tobago got the blue water, more that Jamaican kind of feel, vibe, and look. You know, the food, the carnival. Second largest carnival in the world is in Trinidad. I went to that carnival. Um, really good vibe, good time, very expensive. Should be coming up this year about around February after Ash Wednesday. People usually prepare for like a year or two to go to that carnival. One of the best life changing carnivals in the world. Same with Brazil, right? You go there, you can never forget it. I would recommend anybody go check out Trinidad Carnival. You can look it up. Go this year, February, instead of going to Brazil, for example. Trinidad just have an exchange rate of like $8 to one US dollar. So be aware of that. But other than your hotel stay or your Airbnb and transportation and food moving around Trinidad during that time, you'll be fine. I would suggest you get a hotel closer to the events if you're going to Trinidad to do the carnival. And you should have got that like 5 months ago. You try to do it last minute, they're gonna be like super expensive. And I had got like a cheap hotel at that time, like last minute, not realizing it was their carnival the year I went for carnival, right? So like literally, I didn't know it was the carnival. I'm like, what the f? It was like a week and a half, like 2,000 and something US dollars, and that's like the cheap place I'm finding. And most of the other places were booked. But what happened was I had booked a flight on Caribbean Airlines for like 340 US dollars each way, right? Because somebody had canceled. So it was like a 3 a.m. in the morning cancellation flight promotion. I picked it up. Like I was supposed to go to another island named Barbados. And I had an adopted cousin who lived in there that I hadn't seen in years. Actually, I never saw her again. She kind of disappeared from the family, but she was adopted. So, you know, her father was actually married in, so it wasn't like blood. And she disappeared on me. But before that, she was like, "Yeah, come to the island whenever you want to do it. Let me know when's your vacation. I'll show you around, blah, blah, blah." So then me and my girlfriend at the time, who was my ex-fiance, me and her had some argument, and she couldn't go anywhere. And I was like, "Well, I can't wait on you. So I'm going on vacation." So I reached out to the cousin for like a week, and I heard nothing from her. Never did after that time either. We hadn't heard from her and the family in years. Later on, I found out she was going through something with her husband, all kind of stuff. She now got like 4 kids, but it is because of social media. But she disappeared. I'm like, hell, I ain't gonna not go on a vacation. So I look up, boom, Trinidad and Tobago came up. Nice price at that time. I book it. Then I went to book my goddamn hotel. And they had that many Airbnbs at that time. Probably still don't. That's one of the weird things about that island. So be careful. So when I tried to book my Airbnb for Trinidad and Tobago, nothing really coming up. Airbnb was fairly new at that time too. Hotels are all booked and some crazy prices for the ones that weren't. So like the real high end hotels with like golf course, and I was like, why the hell aren't these coming up? So I found another hotel, reasonable price, but it was near to the airport, which is far away from the venue and far from the main section. But I'm like, all right, I'm Caribbean. I'll make my way around. I got an accent. I could change up my accent. The accent similar to us, but different. I'll be able to find out different things. I'll be all right. As long as I could get my bags and everything with a taxi who's going to overprice me and get to my hotel. After then, I can move around as I need to. Still don't know this goddamn carnival, right? Flight comes up. I jump on the flight. Now remember, it's a late morning booking, and because of that, so like I'm leaving like the next day. So I flew out from Florida the next day. At that time, it was Orlando. I get there. I think it was like a 4 or 5 hour flight. I get there, 4 hour flight. I get there, got the taxi. We go to the place. Even the guy was like, "Yo, you staying in this neighborhood?" I'm like, "Yeah." I was like, oh, "Is this neighborhood dangerous?" He's like, "Well, it ain't the best, but I know the place you're going. They got like a big fence. They got a pool. It's a big compound. They got security. You should be all right, but don't walk around this neighborhood nighttime." I'm like, "All right, cool." He's like, "But don't worry. I think there'll be like a driver that they got, and they got like their own buses that they could take you. But what'll happen is if you take the bus with a group of people, you got to be back for the bus to pick you up, and you go back, kind of like a tour bus, right? And you generally don't want to be tied to that. You guys might want to be tied to that. I didn't want to be tied to that. So if you go on a private taxi now, you're gonna probably pay like 30, 40 US dollars, right? For a ride, maybe even more. Because now you got one guy and he's rolling around with you, depends on how much hours you need and these kind of things, right? So I get to the hotel. I'm like, man, this hotel is cheap as fuck. As in like how it looked, not necessarily the price I paid because I paid even over the price because of the time of the year. And the reason why that one was available for cheaper than the others is because it wasn't in the best neighborhood. It was near the airport, which is far, and even though it was still a city, those two things combined. The pool, they have no damn water. The pictures look better, but the place look older. I remember I hid a couple things I had that was valuable, and I swear to God, the cleaning lady still stole some shit out my room. That kind of hotel, that kind of place. But it was more like a lodge, not really a hotel that was big. Kind of like their family-owned hotel. The guy who ran it, brother-in-law, actually ended up being a driver. He used to live in Florida, and he ended up being my driver. We ended up being friends. So he was like rolling me around, but then sometimes when the price is kind of crazy or when I realize where I'm going, I won't use him as much, But one day, me and him like literally rolled around. It was an older gentleman, told me how many years he used to live in South Florida. Then his son started a business in Trinidad and Tobago. He had a business in the U.S. He retired back home. His brother-in-law owned that building, that hotel. So I just got lucky. He was the first person to talk to as a driver. And me and him, he decided like, yo, don't worry about the price. We just roll around, we talk, stop for him to pay his electric bill. We ate somewhere, old dude, a real old school dude that I could really learn a lot from, right? So we talked because of my country. I talked with him, and that was cool as shit. And he's like, yo, when you hit back Florida, I'll give you my son's number, link up with my son. Y'all around the same age, y'all cool people. So that was a good experience. Now Carnival itself, man, I ended up running into this British girl. She was Caribbean, but she was home to Trinidad. This girl had a nice slim body and cut fit. But I happened to meet her on my last day there. I think I did like Carnival was usually like 14 days. They had different types of events. I did like 7 days or 10 days, can't remember. But Trinidad was a good time, Trinidad and Tobago. So you guys got a chance to do Trinidad. I swore as many times I was supposed to go to Tobago. I kept missing my flight early in the morning. They also have if you miss your flight going over to Trinidad and Tobago, there is a ferry that they do, I think, once in the morning. If they still got that ferry, you could go earlier in the morning, take a ferry, or before 12. I could not make that ferry. I tried every time, man. It was not destined for me to go over to Tobago because I was partying, getting drunk even before Carnival um, in Tobago, and then I just couldn't. I had the energy to make it the next day. So I just kept partying. I mean, like that was a really, really, really good time, really good country. Ended up wandering around there downtown. So currency wise, it was one of the places where I was like, man, I could live there. But the crime at that time was serious. And certain parts of Trinidad and Tobago still got that crime, you know. But if you're living there, you're living a normal life, you ain't got to worry about it as much. But during that time, we also used to kidnap people. But the word was they would kidnap people who, you know, family members. It would look like they're into good normal business on the outside, but a lot of them were into like drug trafficking and stuff like that. So they used to kidnap their family members, even if it was like a third cousin, they didn't care. So a lot of what you hear about Trinidad is usually gang stuff. So don't worry about that as much. You're gonna be doing that in Trinidad and Tobago. Good country to visit. Jamaica, same thing. Everybody know Jamaica, right? You had to go and you go into one of the resorts. I always did Airbnbs. I even went to Kingston, did a rental car there one time, drove over the mountain to Kingston, drove back over, went to a strip club in Jamaica. And let me tell you, a strip club in Jamaica is not like a strip club in America. It's a house of disputes. And I was with my ex girlfriend at the time. We both went in there, had a lot of fun. Let's put it this way. Went to a couple of little parties in other little areas around Kingston. Went over to an area near the airport in Kingston. So I went all around Jamaica, man, all the way on the other side of Jamaica to Boston's, then try to drive over into Kingston, only to realize we were stopped by mountains and cane fields, got lost in little villages. You know, I've been all over Jamaica, man. St. Anne's, all of that, the caves. At one point, I thought I was going to move and live in Jamaica with that same American ex fiance, right? Because we had like 10 years together. But so Jamaica, Trinidad, Brazil, Chile, Panama. Well, yeah, sure, I cover with you guys. You guys already know a lot of information on my channel with DR. Give it thumbs up, give it thumbs up. South Africa, Johannesburg. Let's discuss. Did not show you guys anything from South Africa, but I was in South Africa for a couple of months. Well, one of the mistakes I made though, I went there when it was colder. As it got colder, I was like, let me get the hell out of here. However, you got your rich neighborhoods and you got your poor neighborhoods. That's with any place in the world. South Africa is extremely developed, but you always got that feeling that you got a similar feeling in Colombia, where you always got to kind of watch your back, or people telling you watch yourself is dangerous. Even other South Africans are telling each other the same thing. Everything about it reminds me of America. It's just more black people. Then you got some white people. Saw two white girls in the club one time. Most of it is black people. Unless you start, the richer the neighborhood you start to go, the more white it get. Every place got damn security because it's always kind of got that sense of danger. So every building you go to, there's a security guard, security booth, security gate, security, freaking security. Everything goddamn security. Kenya, you got security everywhere, but it's not that same feeling because you need security. It's just like culture. That's what they do. Oh, you're in a building, there's a security for the building. Oh, you go to a mall, there's security for the mall. They check your bags. That's Kenya. So Africa is kind of like no guns, no knives, no fights. And you got that feeling, the music they listen to hip hop and they listen to piano. You get that more aggressive culture, right? It's not unnatural to see crap happening in Johannesburg. I got lucky. I didn't see anything, but it's definitely one of the places that you go into a club and you feel like, okay, this is like America. A fight could pop off. People got that kind of vibe. They're more keeping to themselves. Um, I don't know. I wouldn't say it's one of the cheaper countries I've been to buy like alcohol or go to a place, but it's not exactly cheap either. But it's not too expensive either if you're American, right? If you come directly from America, you've never been to certain places, you're still going to think it's cheap. They do a lot of whiskey, they don't do a lot of rum, but there's Africa in general. People do whiskey, gin. You know, if you guys into like Hennessy and all these kind of things, you go to South Africa, you're gonna have every one of them things there. That's for sure. You have the drinking culture, you have the shisha or hookah smoking culture, right? But that's most African countries you go to, you're gonna have that anyway. South Africa got that. I haven't went to Cape Town. Maybe next time I go, I'll go there, but I don't really necessarily want to go a place where there's too many white people. I'll just be honest with you. I spent so many years in countries where it's either the language wasn't mine or I'm still the minority. That 2 years ago when I first came to Africa, I enjoyed being in Africa. It was my original goal anyway, because it was like your people. Now I truly see, like, if you were in a country, let's say I was in Brazil and I'm a black Brazilian, and you know there's racial issues in your country. I've saw Africans in Brazil from Angola and these places. Now, they come from some tough African countries. But if you come in for a better life, instead of trying to go to some whiter country, but you didn't even make it to Europe, you didn't make it to America, Canada, I don't know why the hell, if you come from that side of the world or even African side of the world, you wouldn't say F Brazil. Let me just go to a better African country. Instead, I see, because it was programmed into people, even in the Caribbean, if you from a tough country, if I'm from a worse part of Jamaica and I was born and raised there, fuck, I would go to South Africa if I could figure out how to make some money and live in a good part of South Africa. But that would be the problem anyway. You go in the world anyway, how to make some money, right? But I would choose a country where the people look like me and I ain't got to worry about that shit. Even if they're like, oh, you from a not African country? Why you in my country? I would still go to a not African country. Now that I've seen good African countries, right? Because then you don't always have to feel like you're the minority or the majority is treating you bad because of your race, right? It's just so common and relieving. And these African countries, people speak English. They speak their languages, but they also speak English. Many times they speak seven goddamn languages, right? This is where you also realize that Africans are really, really intelligent. In the Caribbean, we used to say some Caribbean countries, like, let's say Haiti, oh, they speak English. Some of them, they speak Spanish, they speak French. And then when you get to African country, you're like, God damn, we don't really speak languages on our side of the world. These people really speak a lot of languages. You might be talking to them and they got what you consider a bad English accent. But once you get used to that accent, you then realize this person speak French, they speak, uh, five different tribal languages, all kind of different things. You like, how the hell the human brain can hold all that? And they've been doing that all their life, right? So then you might be like, if you're an American, well, look at their accent. I guess they're not that intelligent. Well, guess what? If they made their way to America and all that, they had to get into that country. They're very intelligent. It means they went to university in their country, high school in their country, these kind of things. And you'll be shocked how many different languages those African people know, much more than us, right? And the things they'll be studying. I met a lot of guys when I was growing up in New York, in Manhattan, that was studying like three different things that were Nigerian, right? Nigerians got a bad rep no matter where you go, though. So be careful of that. Everybody in Africa think they're all criminals in the rest of the world because so many scammers come out of Nigeria. But I would say I would take a chance in those good African countries that are more developed and in the good areas, in the good neighborhoods, especially coming from the West, where even if you're not coming from the States and you're a black person, the countries you're coming from, all the way through from Canada, all the way down to the Caribbean, into South America, they usually have stronger visas. So then you just find a country like South Africa and all that, figure out their visa system. Many times it's the same struggles you will go through to get into, North American countries like Canada, England, and the US anyway. And I would tell a black person, fuck it. Go to South Africa, man. Go to Kenya. Go to, look online and see where's the developed African countries. Yes, some of them, if you're in the southern parts of Africa, will have a little bit more white influence and a little bit more white people, but the black people are still the large percentage of the population. They're still the majority, right? But then there's an issue. Some of you guys think Spanish is better or white is better. So anything you think is black is not what you want, even though you might be black. I don't know how to help you guys overcome that, but you're going to be in a lot of trouble in the next 25 years because the African population is going to be the largest in the world. They're going to outnumber Chinese and Indians. China might dominate the world at that time, but Africa is going to have a huge influence as a continent. And the African people, depending on which country you're going to, got every shade. Hell, South Africans who are white, they're still Africans. Afrikaans, right? So to give you guys the idea, the influence, and they got all the northern Africans, right? Some of them who don't want to consider themselves Africans that look white as hell all the way to Burma and Somalia, right? Hell, even in Kenya and in South Africa, you got light skinned people that when you walk around, if they don't talk and if you don't know you're in Africa, you think you're in America. Because even black Americans got every shape and every shade, and every Caribbean person got every shade. So this other thing that, if you come to Africa, it's only like really dark Africans and everybody's supposedly living in a hut and every country is horrible. It's not true. With that said, I've seen some poverty and I was like, God damn. But it depends on which country you're in. No, South Africa got American type poverty, where it's like a nice building, but the neighborhood is horrible. You may as well be in West Philly or you may as well be in the horrible parts of America. It looks exactly that way when you go to South Africa because you could land in South Africa and you'd be like, I think I just flew to America. Matter of fact, one day, maybe I fire up my live stream, don't tell you guys where I am, and maybe I'm in a part of South Africa where it's both white people and black people, and you guys will be like, "Where are you in America right now? It looks like you went home." And then I'll wait a while, and then I'll break news to you that I'm not in the United States of America. I think that's the best way, maybe, to introduce people actually to Africa, especially South Africa, because I could be not even in the richest part of South Africa, and if I had fired up my life and I was sitting there, you guys would literally be on a live for over 2 hours, and you'd believe I was in America. I wouldn't have to tell you. And if you didn't hear me, like maybe somebody accent, and even if you did, America is so diverse. You would still think I'm in America. You would probably just think, oh, somebody walked by who got an accent, because this is the United States of America, and they got everybody from everywhere around the world, right? And that's the difference. The only difference now is though, when you in that country, it's flipped the opposite way. You are no longer the minority. Even though in America, the Latinos outnumber African Americans. African American population is like what, 23 to 26% of the whole goddamn United States of America. Black Americans are now really like a real minority. Latinos now outnumber them. And if I'm not mistaken, Chinese or Asians of all different types. And then there's white. And the whites are concerned that their percentage now is like 54% of the country. And then the others are all different mix of all different types of minorities, right? When you go to a country where it's mostly you, it's such a great feeling. It then reminded me, even when I was in Guyana, our country is about 50 some percent Indian. We got a mix of peoples. We look all shades. But even in Guyana, black Afro Guyanese, we are not the majority. It was very close when I was younger. People got more mixed during the time. And now maybe it's 40 some percent Indian, 47% Afro Guyanese. But after living in America, I was very aware that in my country too, there's colorism issues and these kind of things. Trinidad and Tobago is even more Indo-Trinidadians, right? And less Afro-Trinidadians, and then a mix. And there's still those underlying issues. So everywhere you are in South America, the Caribbean, and North America, there's those kind of issues. You hit African, and it's like, wow, this feels good. And I knew how it felt to go home to Guyana after living in America and feel like, wow, this feels good. Everybody looked like me again. And yeah, there's a few white people in the Caribbean too, right? But that feeling, or living in DR, and it's okay, I'm dark. Yeah, there's dark Dominicans, but the majority is the traditional, typical Latino and Latinas. And you guys chasing the Brazilian girls, the Dominican women. Da, da, da. The truth is, if you're living in those countries, though, you do stand out if you're a darker skinned black man, right? And yes, you might not get as much discrimination, but it's going to be there. And you're going to realize it the longer you're living those countries. I could be in Brazil. I'm still going to be a minority in Brazil. And I literally stood in Ipanema Beach talking to a black Brazilian guy, and he's whispering to me, hey, it's very racist here, right? And he's with a light skinned Brazilian girl. But I'm sure that girl got a little bit of black in her, so she probably considers herself also black. This old Brazil it's a weird thing. Kind of reminds me of color, what they call colored in South Africa. But I'm like, yeah, man, you got to whisper, and I do know. But he's trying to tell me about the black people's struggles in Brazil, and I'm like, it's funny. I'm dark just as this guy, if not he's a little darker than me, but he acting like I don't know because why? As soon as I'm a foreigner, though, in their mind, things are different. But the truth is, living there for a long period of time, you then realize just how it was the same for me in Dominican Republic. Some of the reactions when that you get when they first see you before they know you're a foreigner, it's still going to be not the best. So it's a weird thing to be stuck in between as a black person, right? Because it's like I guess this whole light skinned Americans would have feel back in the day. They're passable, where you're not really black, but you're not really white. So if you're when you're around the blacks, it's like, oh, but you half of us. So you pass a little bit more than the person who would have been darker. But after a while, man, you don't want to be the passable person either. Fuck that. I'll curse on this one because that's how I feel about it, right? And I'll be real, man. Most of my life, I realize I've lived that way. I've lived in a way where, as a black person, you always got to be better. You got to watch yourself. You can't do certain things because you're always the one that's maybe sometimes you go a place, you're the one black guy or the two black guys. I've worked jobs where it was literally me and three other black people, these kind of things. The majority is white. And we got the sense that we're the black ones. Even if nobody's telling us anything or treating us bad, you just know, like, okay, the majority is these are the people, then there's us. For the first time, I think even black Americans are seeing this with themselves because they might be at a job and most of the people might be Latinos. And now they stand up because they don't necessarily fit in with the Latinos. Or I've worked jobs when I walk in and everybody stops speaking English and starts speaking Spanish. Then one person's going to say, hey, he knows Spanish, right? And then they're like, oh, really? I didn't really know that. So now when I'm around, it's like, hey, don't forget, he knows Spanish. And at that time, my Spanish wasn't that good. But they figured it out one day and then they realized, like, oh, hey, yeah, he's the Caribbean guy and he's next to South America. Oh, and he spoke Spanish. They just don't know I actually learned Spanish in college, right? I did a year course. I just didn't use it that much at the time because it was New York. And most of the New Yorkers who were Spanish spoke Spanglish, or they could just, spoke English. And then maybe if they talked to another Latino, they would keep switching between the two. But for the most part, they spoke English. But when I got to South Florida, it was like, what the? You go to certain parts of South Florida, man, you may as well be in Mexico or Cuba or Venezuela, right? So I encountered all the Latinos from everywhere: Chile, Argentina, Guatemala, like being in Texas, I guess. So that feeling, man, I will tell anybody. I don't care. Some of you dudes that know your passport, bros. You only think about the women side of it. But take that opportunity to travel. And this is the reason why you don't only want to travel for one thing. You go to a country where you get that feeling, and it will change your life, especially if you were born and raised in America and you've never really known. I don't care if you're living in Georgia and you're living in Atlanta, which is predominantly the closest you're gonna get to feeling like you live a place where it's just all black people, where you still know when you turn on that TV. Same like if you're in New York and you're in Brooklyn or you're in Queens and you're living in a predominantly black area. You ain't gonna run into that much white people, but you still know you're living in a country that's predominantly white. You still know you're gonna get policed by the police and they're gonna be predominantly white or Italian or whiter other people. When you get stopped, you get pulled over. Maybe your boss is after a certain level. You know it's there. Nobody can deny that that doesn't happen, right? But to literally go into a place where it's like everybody is like you, whether they're poor or they're super rich. And there's a lot of them. There are a lot of rich that look like you, a lot of poor that look like you, the middle class that look like you. And when you go a place, the reactions are not based on you, and the reactions are not based on the fact that everybody else around you left and right, and then you stand up, or it's balanced, or it's mixed. It's no longer that. It's just you, a lot of you. So much so that if you then see another, you're like, oh wait, look at that. It's another. But this is all we used to say sometime when I would be home in Guyana too. We'd be like, oh dude, yo, look, it's a white guy. And we talking more, we got white people, but you could tell the ones who like grew up there, raised in the country. They look different. Than like the tourist white person. In our country didn't have a lot of tourism. It wasn't like Jamaica or nothing. She'd be like, "Oh, well, look, it's a white person, or it's a white couple," and we meant like American white people at that time, right? Or European white person, or Britain white person, because we were owned by the British. Most Caribbean islands that speak English were all British owned, right? Colonies in the past. If not, they speak Spanish. They were Spanish owned. So just that little experience, guys. Talking about Africa for you, Kenya is nice. I know you guys got different feelings, but the ladies of Kenya, if you've been watching social media, come see things for yourself is what I would say. Go to those countries, see things for yourself. There actually is really a balance. Kenya is definitely one of the countries where people don't really want to be on social media a lot, so they don't want to be on camera. So most of the guys you guys saw with girls on social media in Kenya is because those are only the type of girls that will want to get on video. I tried to warn you guys about that too in my previous life, where I told you, don't just believe everything that you see. Is South Africa more mixed? Absolutely. But they're also segregated like America. So you got colored areas where the girls are going to be lighter, or places that the coloreds frequent. And then you realize coloreds got a lot of little problems, or Zulus who are darker got problems with colored people. Or if Zulus think you're black, because you will look like them if you're black, or if you look colored to them, and they'll be like, "Why don't you speak? Why are you speaking English?" They expect you to speak Zulu. They might get angry at you. Zulus are very aggressive as a tribe. I realize they intimidate some of the other tribes in South Africa. Hell, I always loved the movie Shaka Zulu and Zulus, right? But then I realized, like, when I'm around Zulus when I was in South Africa, I would be on my P's and Q's because I felt like I had to be ready to fight if something go down. Even though sometimes it was educated Zulus. I was talking to a guy out there, he was a doctor, then I was talking to his two friends. But it had that feeling of being like in the Dominican Republic where they know you're not one of them. They're cool with you, but there's another part to that culture you'll never fit in with. That's how the Zulus are. But they were always the warrior class. They're the ones who mostly fought for their freedom. And they didn't get freedom a long time ago. It was only the 90s. That is not that long. So South Africa still got that feeling. They still, when I was there, they were still talking about racism. They were still talking about how the white people are controlling their country. You guys saw the stuff that happened with Trump, so you know that exists. Um, that is still true about South Africa. I was considered colored to my shocking surprise when I was in South Africa. Especially at one point, I remember showing one girl pictures of my family. And she's like, "Oh, you colored? I'm colored too." And I'm like, "No, I'm black." She's like, "Well, how your brother look like that? How you?" I showed her my cousin, my brother. I'm like, "Well, in the Caribbean, we're all kind of mixed." To my surprise, she tell me she's colored. And when I thought about it, I was like, "Oh, I could see why she's saying that." She wasn't even like, what even in America you'd consider like a really mixed person. But in if you got a tint of more of the brown to you and you're in South Africa, you could be considered colored, right? Unless you're really, really dark. Um, they could think of you as colored. So actually most African Americans might literally be considered colored in South Africa. So that's one of the things that still kind of threw me off about South Africa. But you guys who into light skinned girls, light skinned black girls and all that, hell, there's girls that look Indian in South Africa, that look Latina in South Africa. But there's also girls that look that way that are Muslim, right? In African countries. This is where I think a lot of guys don't know, and that's because their culture, they generally not, you're not going to find them on camera, you're not going to find them on a dating site. They're going to be Muslim. So just by culture, you won't see them really. It's kind of like a no-no in their society. And when you do see a girl on like a dating site that look that way, she's probably a hookup girl, or she's one of the ones who more like trying to be modern. Most of her culture probably don't really accept some of the things she's into and what she's doing. Or you got to go to certain areas within those countries. I could personally go to South Africa and go into the colored, but what looks to me like Indian areas, and I would be fine because my grandmother on my mother's side was Indian. I could pass as a colored in their society, but I would understand their culture a lot because a lot of them are actually mixed with Indians that came to South Africa, right? Especially in the area of Durban. Durban is a city. They have a lot more Indian culture there. I already know I would even enjoy the foods and everything in that culture because I've researched it and I've seen the type of food when I was in South Africa, right? And I would either fit in there or I won't like it. But I would love their food, and I would know ahead of time a lot of the culture because there's how it is in Guyana, where it's like and Trinidad and Tobago, where it's Afro-Indian influence, right? Or we all got a little bit Indian in us, or Indian person in the family, or we eating their foods, or they were Hindu, or they were Muslim, but they were Indian, or black Muslims. We have black Muslims in Guyana, not that many. So even when I came to Africa the first time, it wasn't shocking for me to be around a black Muslim. Now, I was in Uganda, and I will say there's a lot more black Muslims there too. I also think like Uganda culture, half of it was a lot more like religious based, a lot more Christian. It wasn't really my vibe. It felt like I was back in like Jamaica mixed with Dominican Republic, mixed with my country, Guyana. And then the development to me wasn't that on point. They need work on their roads. Much like Dominican Republic, they still need a whole lot of work on their electricity. I could be in Kenya and the lights might go out once in a while, maybe once a month, maybe twice a month. And the areas where I'm in, maybe for 5 minutes, at longest, maybe 3 hours. DR, depending on where you are in DR, man, in both Santo Domingo or in the North Coast. Lights could go out anytime, anywhere, get too hot. You don't know when it's going to come back on. I noticed in Kenya, they would plan their outages. Even if I thought it was an outage that wasn't supposed to be there, I go online. I see they'll tell you every area that's going to be affected, how many hours. I was impressed. They'll tweet it out on Twitter. They got an app. You could know by checking when they're going to be electricity outages, these kind of things. Obviously, if you're in the more poor areas or you're in the villages somewhere, it might be different, right? But just those little things, man. I'm looking forward to checking out Ethiopia at one point. So really only two countries, South Africa and Ethiopia. And that's mostly because I'm gonna have to do those travels for my visa anyway, or to reset my visa. So I may as well just check it out. And I gotta leave the what they call the East African bloc, right? So the options: South Africa, the ones around South Africa. You could go to Ethiopia, which is doing very well right now because Ethiopia built its own dam, didn't borrow any money from the Chinese or anybody else. They used their own citizens, and they literally finished a massive hydroelectric dam. So much so that they're providing electricity to other African countries now. So anybody who normally think of African countries like, oh, electricity can go out and blah, unless you may be in some rural parts of Ethiopia, that's gonna be something of the past in their country. And because of that, also they then started to do a lot of construction. So there was a lot of videos coming up the last year of Addis Ababa, the capital in Ethiopia. If you guys interested, I would say go look at that video. I did date an Ethiopian girl and an Eritrean girl when I was in Florida. So I know a little bit of their culture. Actually, I was hoping I was going to run into an Eritrean girl because of that one girl. I mean, they really reminded me of the Caribbean, and that was the first time, or even a Latina or a Dominican black girl that was light skinned at that time. But I didn't know the culture, so it was kind of shocking. It was like, huh? Because I was only used to like the Spanish or the Caribbean black mixed culture. Girl looked good, nice body, but she had that kind of weird Indian look, mix hair, and it was unique, beautiful. She had a daughter though. I couldn't do that whole baby mama thing. But also, one thing about her, she was getting out of a relationship with some guy who was a police. I didn't want to get involved in that craziness. I think I found out later that it was also the child father. So I was like, oh hell no. I'm dealing with no dude who, her daughter father was a police and all this shit. Black guy too. And she did consider herself black. She was very cute, nice little petite, great body, nice hair, cute face. She introduced me to some of their music. I remember for like a month straight, I just used to watch this crazy dancing that they used to do. Eritrea and Ethiopia and these areas, many a time they share the same history. They had wars among each other when the British split them up, but it's pretty much the exact same culture. They'll tell you different, but it is. Food is the same, everything's the same. But unfortunately, they're now like enemies with each other. So you date one, you date the other, and vice versa, right? For the most part. People do say, yeah, they'll stick to their own culture. But if they've been traveling, if they've traveled to the US and these things and they see you, they'll date you. When I was in Kenya, I was in a building in Pengani which is like a near Somalian neighborhood. And I was on the elevator with this one girl. She's like, "You from the States, right?" And I was like, "How you know that?" I said, "Well, I'm Caribbean though." And she's like, "Oh no, I live in the States. I also live here. I got family, blah blah blah." But this whole thing going on with the Somalians and Minnesota right now, y'all might be a little bit more aware that there's a lot of Somalians living in Kenya, but there's a lot of them here too, all the way from the dark ones to the really light ones. Same with some of your Eritreans and all that. So it's not that you can't find if you're only into light skinned chicks and all that, and that's just your preference. I like dark skinned women, so for me, I'm happy either way. But you can find that. Hell, you got Chinese even. This is the other thing that people talk all this crap about, but they're not aware. You got Indian women in these countries. You got Chinese women here. Hell, you got Thailand women. You don't see as much of them, but if a girl from in Africa and Thailand, and she tell you she's working in a massage parlor, you already know what she's doing. So be careful of that. If the girl is Chinese from China, her family probably does construction if you're into Chinese or Asian women. Same with Filipino women. If you're in Africa and the girls are Filipino, you ain't gonna find as many of them, but typically they're doing X work, unfortunately. So be careful of that. But it depends on what your taste is. I know some of you guys want to know that part of travel, so I'm just going to tell you it. Like I used to do the walk and talks, I'll give you information. So that's some information right there. I personally think, especially with the craziness that's going on with the crash out bros, I don't call it travel guys. They're not travelers. It's a crash out crew. The J Rellos of the world and all these guys, they do crash out content, crash out and dating content. I personally think. I was trying to tell them a long time ago before these incidents happened, like 2, 3, 4 months ago. I was telling them, change your name. Don't call yourself travelers. I don't know why they keep saying they're doing travel content. And guys never showed you nowhere, never told you no information. They talking about they want to go there for a wife or they only going for the 3 or 4s. They ain't got nothing to do with travel. They're just trying to go to certain countries where they can do that and put it on camera, right? It's not about actual travel. They ain't never give you one information. And you guys who are watching them, you know you're not watching for any information. You're watching for that. Just in case you want to balance it out. I think the next year or two, most of you guys who are still talking garbage, you guys will be going to African countries. You used to say African countries are far. And then guys start going to Thailand and Asia, which is far as hell, Vietnam. So there's no way you won't be willing to go as far as Africa. The only reason why guys weren't going to Africa is because of the old stereotypes of the West have been selling people on Africa for years. The minute you guys start realizing not only is Africa developing in certain countries very fast, but then when you start realizing there's actually variety there too, I'm actually hating that day. I'm hating that day because I know at that day I'm like, here comes the ruination, like every other place. Just like Colombia, just like Brazil now. You know, I think soon you're gonna see a lot of guys going into Peru because the international zoo, Barber World TV went over there, and now it seems like he's dating that girl from over there. So now all of a sudden I see what is this guy name, man? He used to be right here, and it used to be in Kenya and South Africa. Uh, uh, Kid Greatness. Kid Greatness all of a sudden showed up in Peru. Now that might have also been because of the ease of travel from Africa. You could fight from Brazil also. And I know, I don't think he would have fly cold turkey to Brazil. And then also with the issues going on in Brazil, right? With the passport, bro. It's like, so it makes sense that he went into Chile. He might do Chile next. Who knows? But I'm not shocked that he turned up in Peru. It might be easy also for him to go into Argentina. The flights when you're also in South America is very cheap. And you could fly with their companies around very cheaply. Um, and, if you're doing travel content, a lot of times it's about the ease of passport and the ease of the flights and reliability of Airbnbs and costs and these things because it's very expensive to travel unless you're doing slow travel. One of the reasons why I did slow travel, one, I had a relationship, but also two is because it's very expensive to travel. But also my theory on travel, if you really want to know a culture, you got to go there and stay a while, kind of immerse yourself, live in the culture. So obviously I wasn't traveling for the pum pum because I've been in countries too long. You guys already know that. So, and I always want to figure out where I want to live. I always knew I would end up in Africa living at some point. That was the original goal. It got stopped by COVID at that time. And the fact that, I needed some dental work and I ended up in DR. They were the only place open and they were cheap for dental work. Then I was like, hell, I could write this out over here. I could stay here. So I went home, packed my crap up, went back to the DR. Like I could be on a beach. Beats me being near a beach in Florida, working at home and having to ride to the beach. And then they had shut down the beaches in Florida, and you just trapped. I had two pools in the place where I lived and two gyms. Never got to use the gym because it was shut due to COVID. Never got to use the pool because they closed that down really early due to COVID. And then the rest of the city started closing down. So at that time, I'm like, they opened up a little bit, went to the dentist, caught COVID, still needed more work. Started seeing a guy from who had trained in Miami that was Dominican, and he had a place in Santo Domingo. He was doing dental work. And I needed some implants. And it was so much cheaper than America. I was like, what the hell am I doing? Did a consultation with a guy online on WhatsApp. Guy gave me all the prices, looked at my x-rays, had a place with an Airbnb. I didn't choose his. It was more expensive. Same reason why girls would go to like DR and all that to get their liposuction. They had a medical tourism industry also in DR. Another thing you guys don't really know that much. Same in Colombia, but girls going to get butt lift and all that. Well, there's some of that in Africa too. Kenya actually got a medical tourism too for dental and these things. South Africa, not as much, but they got a lot of housing there. And yes, on certain things, they got medical tourism there also, right? These things you guys are not really aware of, but of course, you ain't gonna really fly all the way to Africa necessarily for medical stuff, right? Like really far. So when y'all start seeing development though, and then you realize there's actually variety. Some guys realize that about South Africa, but it's typically only guys who don't have a problem with quote unquote black women. They ain't on that nonsense that thinking every black woman will have an attitude or every black woman ain't gonna cook and all this shit. I used to say this earlier on when you guys started talking about that. And if you don't believe me, go back and look at my channel 3 years ago or whatever on some of my videos. I used to say, I don't understand why you guys are saying that because every black girl I had in America knew to cook. And I dated black American girls. The attitude thing, though, if you got a ghetto girl, but I had a southern girl. And even sometimes we used to have differences in culture, but her family, her sisters, none of them was loud or brash or ghetto. Hell, none of them didn't even have tattoos, right? All of them could cook and clean. My girl used to cook and clean. My ex-fiance used to cook and clean. So I never knew where that came from. I have never dated a girl from any country that didn't know to cook and clean. Fuck, I can cook and clean. So because of that, I guess that was never an issue for me. If I had a girlfriend, oh well, she cooked. If she didn't cook one day because she busy and we living together, hell, I cook. Most of the time, though, I never used to cook, but she used to cook. Sometimes we both didn't cook. Just go to somewhere, TGI Fridays or something, have some drinks, have some good food. Go to Applebee's, have a good time out. Go to Blue Martini. You guys are from Florida. One in, I think there used to be one in Orlando if it still exists. One in Fort Lauderdale, and there's one in South Miami. But that is a nice little upscale spot, have a good time. But there was never an issue with that. I don't even understand how a woman wouldn't clean because she got to come home to that house. So I used to say it and I'll say it now. Were you dating only ghetto chicks? Are you only from the ghetto? Because when that girl living by herself, how is her house when you walk in that female's house? I'm going to assume when you dating, if you walk into her house and her house look like crap, why are you sticking your in that? Why would you continue to talk to her? And on top of this, she got an attitude. And on top of this, she didn't know to cook and you have to go out all the time or always buy dinners or always ordering dinners. You're going to be poor forever. Imagine 365 days out the year, you're just ordering food or she ordering food. That's why she poor and she in the hood. So I look at it from a different perspective. So I know some of that is overblown. I'm not saying that the ladies there who are gonna microwave your food or whatever, but for the most part, god damn it, where I'm meeting these women, it is not that bad. That's just a bullshit statement that people used to say. Or y'all were just really looking at wrong kind of women. Anyway, this is not about the women in that country, man. That's just a hype. And it's a shame a lot of young dudes actually believe some of that hype, right? Or they're just choosing wrong. Or fellas, be what you want. Learn to cook some shit. That way you run into a woman, she gotta be ashamed that you can cook and she can't freaking cook. Now if you want to wear the drawers though, she can be like, well, you can cook for me, and then you could be the bitch. You can wear the panties. In that case, she better have a real good job and you better tell her, okay, ain't no 50-50. You want to be the man? You go work for all the money. I'll cook for you. And maybe that'll be fine for y'all if that works out. If you want to reverse everything. But this is the other thing. Um, anywhere, anytime we went anywhere, me and that same ex-girlfriend, I used to buy everything. I don't think there's ever been a woman I've ever dated where if we go somewhere for food or dinner or a club or anything, I'm just raised that way. I already know as a man is on me. Was there time she ever bought me something? Yes, my birthday or if one day she just wanted to. She's like, nah, baby, I got this because she had a job. So it was working women too who got jobs. So I don't know, man. I don't know how you guys got this whole thing confused. I remember one time I was facing charges. So I literally was on an ankle monitor for like a year and I couldn't work. I had some serious charges. I couldn't work. Every time I would apply to a job, after a while I had to stop because they'd be like, oh, you got this thing pending. And then or no call back at all because it's like, what? Obviously, those charges got dropped, right? I ain't got no criminal record for you guys who out there now thinking I got some serious charges. Good luck with that. But living with my girl at the time for like a whole year, she was the one covering our rent and all that. You know what I mean? Now, being resourceful, I had already started a small business, but it wasn't bringing in money like that. I was doing like telemarketing calls from the house on a phone line, which she helped to pay for. And I mean, the money I was bringing in was pretty much only covering like my ankle monitor, because you guys who out there, if you know how these things go. And that is one of the times in my life I was like, I'll never be in that position in my life again. I didn't deserve to be in that position in my life either. I didn't do anything wrong. But this is one of the things I didn't like about America too at that time, that you could be doing everything right, and it just takes a little bit of nonsense for you to be in some crazy positions. That was one of my other motivations to not wanting to live in America, right? Because of their system. You see all these people right now, they could go all the way to America, man, as immigrants right now, even the legal way. And then Trump just comes around, call them a criminal, remove everything, and now they're a criminal in that country. And they could find themselves shackled in chains on a plane into some country they're not even born in. That is insane, right? And even before, he was like, oh, you're going to just be the guys who got criminal records and this, then the third. I was like, yeah, that's a lie. And it proved that way. They chasing women down the street because they look Spanish. And all them Spanish people who used to talk crap when black people were going through stuff, black Americans got to sit there and be like, now you know how it was. And y'all didn't want to help us. So now, hey, welcome to the suck. Well, Indian people knew what it was after 9/11. I still remember that. I had some Indian buddies because my country, they mixed. Man, they had problems at the airport. Imagine them trying to tell people they're Caribbean, like, yo, I am from some, Afghanistan country. Like, I'm a regular Indian dude. Every Indian also knew what it was to be stereotyped at that time because all Indians look the same to white people. They couldn't tell, oh, this guy is the Muslim type from East Africa somewhere, or Northern Africa. They're like, oh, there goes the Indian guy. He might blow the plane up. Some of y'all yourself watching this during those times, if you're old enough, might have seen an Indian dude and looked twice during those times, like, wonder if that motherfucker got a bomb. Especially if you were living in New York. And I was living in New York during those times. And I admit, it made you think twice every time you saw an Indian dude, especially if they were Muslim, with a wrap on their head. You know what I mean? Or even a regular Muslim dude with just a hijab. Not a hijab, forget the name of the guy's one, but that scully cap looking thing. And these are horrible things to say in a way, but this is how humans are built, unfortunately, right? So just these little things, man, going through in life. It's a new year, new moves. Anything you guys want to change, anything you want to accomplish, ain't gonna just come by clicking your finger either. And it might never come, or it might take a long while to come, man. But shoot for it. Shoot for it. Treat people right. If people can't tell you they're wrong or you don't feel they're wrong, let those people go out your life, especially in this new year. It means they don't even their value system, they don't even know that they are wrong. Somebody to change or even deserve better or deserve for you to be in their life. The first step is them even realizing what it is, or else they have no chance of even changing it. The other thing I used to have, what I used to call a three strike rule. As I got older, over a year ago, I realized that was the wrong rule to have. If certain people do certain things, even at the first time, you should just cut them off. At most, if you're gonna give a chance, it's two. Most times, people show you who they are, and even if they try, it's hard for them to change that thing. That's why I say only two chances. I no longer do three strikes. If someone could do something one time and you could forgive them, but they could do it a second time, that's just who they are. That's not going to change. The rest is just they're just going to pretend, or they'll be unhappy because they're not being their real selves, or there's other things going on and it's not really their desire. Someone could make a genuine mistake one time, and because of that, you could give them a second chance. No third chances. By the third time, it's just disrespect, right? And especially if you also got to point out to them. If you got to point out to them what was wrong, man, you screwed. So New Year's, new moves. Let's chat about it. All right, fellas. It's at 2 hours, man. I didn't even expect to be on here that long. It's like after 9 where I am. It's nighttime here. It's a Friday night. It's New Year's. It's early where you guys are. Enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy your New Year's. And I expect some old content, but as the year move onwards, after this month or in between this month, I'm not sure how I'm going to do it. Expect new content. Some of you, I might lose you on that new content, but this is life. Everything has changed. Frick, even YouTube is changing. So I'm even looking at the video views on YouTube. It didn't even make sense for me to keep doing the old thing anymore. I may as well try the new thing and make a difference in the views. Now, if the views were still high, and it's like when I went to Brazil at first, and it's like 20,000 views, 30,000 views on a new video within a week, and it was still growing, I could be like, all right, I might got something to lose here if I change it up. But at this point, I either got to just expand or I got to let it go how it's going. I let it fizzle out. I'm doing other things anyway. For you guys who might be thinking of, coming to this side of the world, if you ever should go to Kenya and you need Airbnbs, hit me up on that. I could either recommend for you, or maybe you'll end up in one of my places. And if I expand, hopefully it goes good. I'll have even more for you. You could stay in those. All right. So email me, richesmethod@gmail.com for Airbnbs in Africa. Email me for consultations if you need it. I think I'm only going to charge like $50 or $25 for like a whole month. At any time you get questions, you hit me with a consultation just by email. You ain't even got to talk to me, which is the beautiful part. Tell me a whole plan. I got time to respond. I got time to do research for you if I need to get information, that kind of thing. So I think the email consultations is better. I'll remind you guys that AI thing, AI, Chat GPT, Open AI, paying $500,000 to get workers who know about AI. I have 2 ebooks instantly downloadable. You can go to payhip.com/richesmethodmedia and download those ebooks now. It's the future, man. And if you guys want to preserve your jobs in this upcoming couple years, you got to be able to go to your boss and be like, I know to use AI to help in my job and to help in the company. This is no longer like one or the other. The people who won't keep their jobs are going to be the people before general artificial intelligence, when it actually at some point starts to think and program itself and each other. But before that time, you're going to need prompting, how to prompt, what to prompt, what's the different platforms, how it's used. Platforms are changing, but if you get the basics, the rest you're going to have enough information to keep up and to know. And it's not like programming. It's not like you got to learn a language necessarily, but it's a way of thinking, the way of using words, the way you're putting into them, no matter if it's ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, DeepSeek, which is a Chinese one. There's no 2 other DeepSeek ones. In a couple of days, DeepSeek, the Chinese company, is releasing like their version 6, which they're saying, like right now, Google Gemini is supposed to be like #1 and how smart it is and what it can do. And they're about to release like a version 6, which we don't know yet, but they're getting nervous, people in this space, that the Chinese version might be more advanced, if not equal, To the American versions, that's the best. Twitter, X, Elon Musk, his version is not even, it's nonsense so far. Like not the worst ones, but it's not up there yet either. And this DeepSeek version might be even better. So I can't even wait to see what it does to when it comes to things like what they call VO3, which is by Google Gemini, where you could create like realistic videos that are AI with audio and sound. Man, you guys don't know what you're missing out on. I've been working on AI on some of my other channels because I just needed like AI content that some people don't like. Some of it is not that advanced because it's about bringing out like a lot of content really fast to monetize. But the thing some of these things can do, man, like if I'm willing to pay a good little set of money for the credits that they usually charge on some of these platforms, I could create like maybe a 5-minute video for you, post it. That says me walking Brazil or me talking to people in Dominican Republic. And you believe it's real. Like you wouldn't even know if I prompt this thing right with every detail and keep generating a few of them until I get it right. That is now one of my videos that I didn't shoot like in person. You will believe like, oh, he back in DR. Oh, he's in Brazil right now. And he just shot this 5-minute, 3-minute, 2-minute clip. And I would have to tell you at the end of it, that is AI. That's how good AI is now. And if you got like unlimited money or you got a good little set of money, you can go to these higher paid versions of like AI video generators and or you could give it a script and have this thing write a whole freaking movie. And most of the movie, if it's so imagine what it's going to do a year from now, 2 years from now. I actually got a whole script that I use ChatGPT to write about AI technology taking over the world. And I'm like, all I need is eventually for it to get to a certain price, unless I want to take the business risk. And it's going to be like a TV series. It already got episodes, episode 1, 2, 3, all the way to 7. Characters and everything, all written out. I even spent time using ChatGPT. I created a whole version of a mix between OnlyFans, TikTok, and YouTube that I keep saying I'm going to release, but I got to test it on my phones first. And then I got to get them on the Apple platform and Google Play platform, right? I got a name for it and everything. Every single thing about it was done using AI. But I developed it to be what they call decentralized, which means other than downloading it, nobody, no big company is really controlling it. So that way also some content they can't ban or control because they also don't hold the information. I came up with a system and asked the AI to do it with a programming where it's like decentralized. Decentralized kind of means how Bitcoin is supposed to work. Bitcoin, okay, got a platform, you got an on-ramp where you could trade and all that. But at the end of the day, no one person controls Bitcoin, which is why Bitcoin is worth what it's worth and why Bitcoin is so important, right? The government don't control it. The government can't print Bitcoin like how they could print a dollar. They can't devalue it. They can't cut it off from a bank system by calling up the bank and saying, hey, cut Russia off from the system. You understand? So I said, hell, let me create a decentralized social media kind of platform mixed with like an OnlyFans kind of platform. Nobody could necessarily ban it. It's kind of like what Elon Musk was trying to do with Twitter. The only difference is he actually controlled it, right? And he could cut it off, ban you, do whatever he wants to. On the back end, nobody can really. The good news is it does do like it can hook up to a company that does background checks to make sure everybody's of legal age and all that stuff to see certain content, but nobody can really control it. And the legal parts of it make sure that no extra crazy crap can't happen either. I don't want to be in trouble one day with any kind of law enforcement from any country, just in general, right? So it is possible to stream out through the crowd of people saying this content here is bad. However, nobody don't really truly control the system and the platform. And that's a good thing. If you put something on that platform, it's still your content. The companies don't own it. I wouldn't own it. There's no company that owns it. If I give away more information, you guys will know how it works. And if one of you out there is savvy, you'll be able to be my competition. I don't want you to be my competition, so I'm not going to tell you the extra details. Plus, I got to see if it works. The hardest part of that actual software and platform, but I tried to program into it, where it's peer-to-peer sharing, is getting it out there and getting it spread where enough people start to use it. And that might take a couple of years. Typically, a big company like Google and these companies, when they start one of these platforms, Facebook, IG, they go get crowdfunding. They got a lot of seed investments, millions of dollars, and they could sit there and advertise it, push it till enough people download it, and then there's enough people on the platform that it's spread by itself. I don't have those kind of resources, right? So my own would depend on you guys seeing a value, or anybody, not necessarily you guys. I'm gonna be targeting you guys. You don't even know it's out there. And one day if you encounter it and it becomes popular, you wouldn't even know I created it. You wouldn't even know what I'm talking about. You just see a program and you'd be like, damn, this is good. I like it. Remember back in the day when people used to use Snapchat, because as soon as they send certain things, it could have disappeared. And the feds couldn't monitor it. Nobody could jailbreak it. A lot of kids start using it, teenagers, I shouldn't say kids, because it's like they could sing a song, they could act stupid, they could do nonsense, and then it would just disappear. The effed up thing is, of course, they also started doing craziness on it, and then, it got a bad name too. And then the companies started to monitor it. But think of a kind of concept similar. Nothing disappears necessarily. You could only own information, you could delete and all that. But also, nobody can see what you don't want them to see. And nobody could really control your stuff either. And they can't censor you as much either necessarily. You see what I mean? And the beauty is too, if they want to see certain things, they gotta pay you. So you could also make money on the platform. That was one of the beauties of what I thought about with it too. So it's like if people can monetize it themselves, it's more likely that they will try to use it, because now they're like any old person, just like TikTok could make money on it, right? So then they'll want to use it. Anyway, peace out. Check you guys in the next one.